Good day and welcome to your Teaching Primary Science course. For this video, I'll be giving a lecture about the theories, principles, and approaches in teaching primary science. But before that, I'll be showing you a gallery containing pictures of well-known educational theorists. I am pretty sure you will be, you will get familiar with them as soon as you heard or you read their names and their works. So we have here Froebel, the father of kindergarten, Simon Freud, Pavlov and Skinner with their conditioning theories, Montessori and Melaguchi with their approaches, Howard Gardner, multiple intelligences, Albert Bandura, John Piaget, Jerome Bruner, Lev Vygotsky. So all of them are famous and pioneering educational theorists who worked on something that is now essential in the modern teaching learning process. Okay, be it an approach or di kaya a theory or a principle or a strategy, a method that is still meaningful in today's time. Now let's start discussing first with theories in teaching primary science. Now we have here 5 major theories which are suitable in teaching science. First, we have the theory of constructivism, social cognitive theory, theory of cognitive development, learning styles theory, brain-based learning theory. Let's get to them one by one. Theory of constructivism. Now, this is an educational theory that defines knowing and how an individual comes to know. So it's the process as well as the product. Now, constructivism is a self-regulatory learning where learners maintain a cycle of constructing and reconstructing knowledge. Hence the name or the term constructivism. It goes in a cyclic manner where yung mga teachers, we start by unlocking or knowing what the prior knowledge of the children are, and then construct new information or present new information based on their past knowledge, and then reconstruct misconceptions if there are any. And then construct ulit ng mga bagong information, reconstruct if there are misconceptions. So the cycle goes. Construct, reconstruct. So that's theory of reconstructivism. Now, to better understand them, let's differentiate conventional at saka yung constructivism setting or constructivist setting. Now, pag sinabing conventional, this is the traditional way of teaching. Ito yung mga napagdaanan ng mga previous batches, kumbaga, ng mga learners. Now, pag sinabing conventional or traditional setting, what happens here is that the teacher tells the student what they need to know, dictates what they need to memorize, give them the requirement, what to reproduce, what to learn, what to memorize, and then in this case, the student will only listen, copy the notes that we are writing on the board, memorize the information that we are presenting to them, and reproduce the information. So therefore, the student here is a passive recipient of learning or of information. So that's conventional. Constructivist setting naman, this is when the teacher, before even starting the lesson proper, he or she needs to know what the student already know, how the student understands, and how to develop their own understanding. Ang mga bata naman, on the other hand, because the teacher wants to know what they already know, ang gagawin ng mga bata, of course, they will open up. They will tell you what they already know, how they learn best, and then they will enter in a dialogue or a conversation, an intellectual conversation between you and him or her, or di kaya between him and his peers. So that's constructivist setting. Social cognitive theory naman, it focuses on social elements like persons, environment, and behavior, and their effects or influence towards learning. Okay, it is popularized by Albert Bandura by proposing the vitality of observing, modeling, and imitating behaviors. Ito yung kay Bandura, observing, modeling, or by observing and modeling, children learn. Okay? So they start from giving attention, and then kapag yung attention ng bata na hook na, they will be retaining information. And then after that, it does not stop there. Hindi lang nare-retain nila. but hindi lang sa utak, but they will reproduce it. And after that, if they reproduce it, it's up to you whether you will reinforce it kapag good behavior yung kanilang na-reproduce, or di kaya you give a punishment so that you can also uh, parang resolve what motor reproduction needs to be resolved. So that's social cognitive theory. Now, sa social cognitive theory also, it tells us teachers to model the behavior of a science learner and of a science enthusiast. Kasi if you as a teacher does not portray any um, enthusiasm or in any interest towards science, your children will follow. Okay, so that's the import, or that's the main gist of social cognitive theory. Okay, theory of cognitive development naman tayo. Now, in this theory proposed by John Piaget, a learner develops cognitive patterns, which we call schema. Ito yung mga organization of knowledge that we all have. Schema, or in plural, schemata. Now, this is how we interpret and understand the world around us. And schema is also known as the building blocks of knowledge. Now, the schema is always changing, always evolving. According to Piaget, learners continuously organize, reorganize schema via adaptation processes, which are equilibrium, assimilation, and accommodation. So let's start muna with equilibrium. Now, equilibrium is striking a balance between assimilation and accommodation. Learners will attain equilibrium if they face familiar information and disequilibrium naman when faced with new knowledge. So, to strike equilibrium or to achieve equilibrium, hindi lang dapat familiar information yung pinipresent. We need to strike a balance by presenting new concepts as well as familiar concepts. Okay? And this is when assimilation and accommodation enters. When we say assimilation, this is when we present to the learners a familiar concept which adds up to what they already know. Okay? Familiar concept, assimilation. Accommodation, on the other hand, is a presentation of an unfamiliar, complex concept which is introduced to the schema of the learners that possesses conflicting or unfamiliar concept. Therefore, kapag accommodation, the students are faced with unfamiliar and parang hindi na nagiging comfortable yung schema ng bata. That's why we need to, after facing unfamiliar concepts, they need to adjust na naman. It does not mean na accommodation is a negative thing. Accommodation is one way of learning new information. Okay, so it's the teacher's mission to strike equilibrium or to achieve equilibrium, especially in presenting new concepts. Okay, so this is an example of how assimilation, accommodation, and striking a balance between the two happens. Okay, so schema ng bata about the cat, and then assimilation naman if the schema of the about the cat is used in identifying a tiger. So na-assimilate yung similarities nila. However, there are differences between the cat and the tiger, and that's where new concepts enters. Yan yung accommodation. Okay, kapag na-accommodate na, yung accommodation or yung new concept nagiging equal na, hindi na siya nagiging complex and unfamiliar sa mga bata. Therefore, after that, you achieve equilibrium. Okay? So, merong schema, and then assimilation, and then accommodation, and then hit the equilibrium. So that's theory of cognitive development. Another point of John Piaget is the development of stages of cognitive development. Now dito, ang focus lang natin as primary science teachers is yung students natin from grade 3 to grade 6. Grade 3 to grade 6 learners, that's around 8 to 11 or 12 years old. So that's under concrete operational stage. Now, according to concrete operational stage, according to Piaget, this is when students learn how to think linearly. They think directly or straight in a straight manner. Therefore, hindi pa masyadong gamay ng mga bata how to think in an abstract manner. Therefore, when we present concepts, we need to make sure that there is a connection between the or among the concepts that we are teaching them. Okay? Kasi nga, again, in concrete operational, 7 to 12 years old, grade 3 to grade 6, they think linearly. Okay? We need to present connections between or among our science topics. Next, learning styles theory. It refers to how an individual gains inclination to a certain or a group of learning preferences which he or she used to approach a learning situation. Now, these learning styles are believed to induce impacts on the performance and attainment of learning outcomes by every learner. So when we say learning styles, it is different from multiple intelligences. Learning style is our approach to learning. Okay? Ang multiple intelligences kasi, it focuses on the content and the product, while learning styles focuses on how we process learning. Okay? Now, one of the most famous learning style model is Dr. Dunn and Dunn's model. So they provided different stimuli, environmental stimuli, emotional, sociological, physiological, and psychological. It tells us na there are some students who prefer to who performs well if nakikinig ng music, who performs well if well lit or di kaya dim yung surrounding, mainit ba or malamig. And some students naman, they perform best if they are motivated. Like they will have gift kapag maganda yung academic performance, or is it because of their responsibility, task persistence, or di kaya because of their plan? That's emotional. Sociological, according to this model, there are students who prefer to work alone, isolated, by pair, or di kaya barkada yung kasama, or by team or by group. Meron ding adults also, or varied. Okay? Physiological, on the other hand, is a learning style where some learners learn best or produce what they have learned if they are moving, if they are eating, or if they are if the time of the day is, for example, madaling araw or nighttime. So that's under physiological. So you need to identify also your learning style. Asan dito yung learning style ninyo? Psychological naman, example of that is analytic or global. Are you an analytic learner? If you're an analytic learner, you tend to you tend to plan your study habit, napaka-organize, and then you focus on factual information. Global naman, global learners, these are learners who prefer to study kung gusto nila. Kumbaga, parang mas nananaig yung emotion if you are a global learning. Gusto mo lang magsa-study ka lang if you want to. Not because of a plan, not because of other external factors. Okay? Next, another example is the Felder-Silverman model. So we have perception, how you perceive knowledge, and how do you prefer knowledge is presented to you visually or verbally, how you process knowledge, and how you how you process concepts, how you understand concepts. We also have here the VAC or the VARC model. Are you a visual, an auditory learner, or a kinesthetic learner? Or di kaya auditory, visual auditory, kinesthetic auditory, visual kinesthetic. Meron din tayong R, which means reading or writing. You prefer or you perform best while reading or writing. Okay, so that's another learning style model. Now, the last one is our brain-based learning theory. Now, brain-based learning theory revolves around the engagement of strategies from principles about our understanding of the brain. Now, it is founded on solid researches from brain-related disciplines. Ano ba yung mga brain-related disciplines? Psychology, biology, scientific researches about genes, and so on. So those are brain-related disciplines. Now, it is also known as naturalistic learning because it emphasizes what is natural to our brain. So it deals with the conditions and experiences that impact our brain in its learning and its learning processes. So from brain-based learning theory, it tells us teachers to teach based on how the brain functions, based on the natural ability of our brain. Now, to better understand, let's follow the brain-based teaching. So this is an acronym. Let's start with brain. B stands for brain's time clock. We need to understand how our brain works. So for brain's time clock, as a teacher, we need to know how to take a rest, how to work. How to allow our students to rest, how to strategically plan their work time, their study time, then rest time, and then work ulit. So there is a cycle between working and resting sa mga bata. So we need to understand that. There is a science, a scientific research behind that. And then repetition naman, of course, backed by scientific facts. The more we repeat information in various forms, the better they retain information. Next, active learning naman, active learning or students who are actively learning in the class tends to have or to activate their neurons more. Okay? Therefore, kapag mas maraming neurons yung activated, mas nakakapag-isip ng tama. Especially if they are active talaga, like physically active, more oxygen comes up to their brain. Therefore, mas nakakapag-isip sila ng maayos. Images naman, images provides better retention also, right? Katulad ng nagbabasa tayo ng books, or if you're going to observe children reading books, they prefer to read books with pictures, right? Because again, it helps, or images helps build understanding and retention even better. Novelty, from the word itself, novel, fresh. If we are to teach science, do not teach science on a bland manner. Kumbaga, very boring, pare-pareho lang yung approach na ginagamit, activities na ginagamit. So as a teacher, provide novel activities, provide novel approaches or strategies in the classroom. That makes an even better, or that makes a brain-based teaching. Novelty. Next part is based. Be colorful. Color, there is a psychology behind each color, right? For example, kapag red, it agitates our mind. If it's blue, it calms. Kapag green, kapag yellow, we need to understand the psychology behind those. Okay? Kasi nga, if we follow brain-based teaching, we need to understand the latest trends in brain-related disciplines, lalo na sa psychology. Next, automatic learning. Automatic learning also provides, from the word itself, automatic judgment or assessment of the learners towards you or towards their peers. Kaya if you're a teacher, if you're a science teacher, especially if you're a new teacher, ang mangyayari, you need to showcase a rapport, a good rapport of a good first impression. Kasi nga, the first instance na nakita ka or nag-meet kayo ng mga class mo, you need to provide them with better impression talaga. Okay? Social brain naman, it tells us that our brain works best if we are socially engaged, like collaboration, cooperative works. Elicit emotions. Emotions is very important in teaching kasi nga emotions provide us with connection towards the lesson. If the student does not feel, or if the student cannot connect or cannot relate his or himself or herself towards the lesson is automatically parang defeated na agad yung purpose ng lesson. So we need to elicit emotions and develop thinking skills. You are teaching science, therefore thinking skills must be developed. Thinking skills such as asking questions, curiosity, discovery, or exploratory skills. So that's under thinking skills. So those are our learning theories. Balik tayo. So we have discussed 5 major learning theories that are suitable in teaching science in the primary Great. So we have here the theory of constructivism, social cognitive theory, theory of cognitive development, learning styles theory, and brain-based learning theory. So that's it for the first part of our lesson or of my lecture. I will be discussing the next parts in the next video. We have the principles and approaches pa. Okay, so kindly move on to the next video and watch the lecture about principles and approaches in teaching primary science. Okay, that's it. Goodbye. Thank you for listening.